Hello and welcome to another episode of Forkful of Noodles. I am Krish Mohan. So we've talked a lot about burning trash to decrease the use of landfills, and there are quite a few people out there that are against this idea. It does take a lot of efforts to put provisions in place that make sure that these incinerators don't affect the environment negatively. But what about the smell, Krish? Huh? What about the smell? It's not even vegan, you monster. Okay, everybody just relax. Okay, no one is saying that burning trash is the answer. Look, there are just certain things that shouldn't be burned. Like bridges are probably the most important thing not to burn. Our infrastructure is not doing great, so we should not burn any literal or metaphoric bridges. Home. Don't burn that. That's where the heart is. That's a very irresponsible thing to do. Plastics should also not be burned, and we've all experimented with setting plastic bottles on fire and then gotten dizzy and thought we talked to God in our kitchen, but in reality it was just the paramedics. And then, some of us go on to realizing the true dangers of plastics, but others go on to huffing paint or nitrous and never really get into the cool self-discovering drugs. Plastic is a gateway polymer, a gateway to ignorance. Aside from diminishing neurons, plastics do pose a very large problem in the world. Currently, there are 5 gyres of plastic in the ocean. And I know 5 gyres to the American ear sounds like the new special at Applebee's, but I promise you, this is not safe to eat. In fact, animals do eat the plastic, and think that they're full, and then they die. Okay, all right, so in that respect, I guess it's not that different from Applebee's food, but at least Applebee's food wasn't made in a lab. Okay, I know there's no way to really prove that, but I think you get the point. The most famous of these is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is said to be the size of Texas. And that's the only way to get Americans to understand the size of anything, right? So is to compare it to Texas. To understand the enormity of the plastic problem, it's like at least 7 Texases and like 1 Oklahoma. Now, these sound like islands full of plastic, but they aren't. Yet. These gyres are areas where the plastic trash is floating around in the ocean, and they're so spread out in this giant area that they get caught in the current, and then the ocean just swirls them around in this area. So basically, it's the beginnings of a dumpster hurricane. Eventually, it could merge into 5 giant plastic islands, which would be the height of human hubris if we did that shit deliberately, which we probably did. Oh, the Earth gets to make its own islands? Not on our watch. Someone call Shell and Exxon, because I have a new way for them to destroy the lives of marine creatures. Maybe that'll get those lazy bastards out of the water and evolve so that they can fight in our armies and dig up oil for us to make more plastic so we can become the most redundantly suicidal species on the planet. And maybe that's what the corporations are waiting for. Like, corporations love waiting for disasters to capitalize from. And this is one of those disasters. They will wait till the plastic starts coalescing into one giant island so that they can turn the giant Pacific Garbage Patch into the giant Pacific Amusement Park. Or if we decide to double down on this dystopia, the giant Pacific Prison Patch. And this is the reason why human beings really love plastic, because it's something we created that nature can't destroy. It shows our dominance over a force we don't truly understand. I mean, this is basically why we all hate Kylo Ren. He's the plastic of the Star Wars mythos. The plastic that winds up in the ocean doesn't go anywhere. It just weakens and breaks down into microplastics. And this is where things get really bad, right? These microplastics are eaten by fish or turtles and eventually pass up the food chain and wind up in us. It's like we're being conditioned to eat our own plastic because if we don't do anything about this issue, that's going to be our last resort. Instead of burning trash, we'll be eating our own trash in like the darkest form of recycling ever. So, what do we do about this issue? There is an idea of using bacteria to eat all this plastic.
We read that each year, the Vancouver municipal government monitors daily concentration levels in rivers to assess their safety. So we figure, if there are places along our Fraser River that's contaminated with phthalates, and if there are bacteria that are able to live in these areas, then perhaps these bacteria could have evolved to break down phthalates.
Now, at first glance, this sounds like a great idea, but if we introduce a new bacterial species to the ocean, we have no idea what it's going to do to that ecosystem. Maybe that's where Godzilla or the kaijus come from, right? Species introduction usually never pans out. It leads to invasion. This is just a way for humans to control invasions. It's like one of our favorite things in the whole world, like from European imperialism to the American empire. Now we're using science to invade the ocean. When will it stop? That's like introducing like 1,000 bulls to Wall Street, which would be hilarious to show bankers what really happens when you take the bull by the horns, or introducing a group of humans to anywhere, really. I mean, that concept is why I'm against us flying out into space to colonize another planet. We are an invasive species. There's also a 23-year-old kid that has a plan for using ocean currents to collect this plastic and get it out of there. And he started working on this project when he was 19. And you were excited when you got laid when you were 19. This guy is here to ensure that your 19-year-old can get laid. Okay, if this plastic problem continues, there's just going to be plastic everywhere, and no one wants to get banged on a bed of old Coke bottles. Boyan Slat dropped out of aeronautics schooling to create his V-shaped nets that are able to catch these microplastics. Then it's taken back to the land where it's recycled. His prototypes and testing was done by crowdsourcing and people donating their pools and spaces to him and try to fix this problem.
So yeah, we were doing this test to measure the forces. These things we used to create waves in a sort of a pool. And if you would do this commercially for like a week of testing, it would cost about 300,000 euros. We built it ourselves, and it was like 4,000 euros. We were able to do an incredibly amount of research with a very small amount of budget. So.
Cool, so people are like, okay, I understand this project, I understand the problem, here's my pool.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's how it usually goes, yeah.
Which means that you can't really depend on corporations to do much about a problem that they're a part of. It's like telling your child to clean up their room and then they take a shit in the furnace. But people will be on board because they want the future of the species to be better than one garbage patch, let alone 5. Which means there's roughly about 35 Texases worth of plastic in the ocean, and none of them have in Austin. It's all just a bunch of Dallases out there. Okay, where's Donald Trump's plan about building a wall around those Texases? This barrier will be anchored above the water since most plastics float and marine life can just swim under it. This system is currently in the prototype phase, but Boyan is expecting to scale up by 2019. And once this is collected, Slat is turned all these collected plastics into the cover of his book, amongst other things, and even back into the oil that the plastic was made out of so it could be used for
You
fuel.
see that it's much more fragile than the normal plastic. First we had to analyze the plastic, and then it turned out the quality was much better than expected. So then we first tried to turn it into oil, which worked. But afterwards we also tried to melt it into new products. That was no problem as well.
Anything you've built out of this so far?
Yes, so we thought there was really no better way to show you can make stuff out of this by making the cover of the feasibility study book out of ocean plastic.
That's an ingenious idea. Why not take all the plastic shit we have and turn it back into oil for fuel and then just make things out of a less shitty substance? I mean, I'll use an old adage here. I mean, we can put a man on the moon, but we can't figure out a better substance than plastic? Okay, so yeah, we're not really putting folks on the moon anymore, but that's because so much of our oil is used to make plastic so you can save $1 on coffee at the Shell gas station. And let's be honest, the moon is a little scared that we're going to invade it for oil on false pretenses. I mean, that's why it's got so many phases and disappears for a couple days at a time, just to keep us on our toes. We're like, whoa, where'd the moon go? I guess we can't send a military rocket to fucking invade it this week. Now, Boyan does have ideas on how to decrease the amount of plastic in our waterways, but this doesn't really solve the problem of what to do with the overwhelming amount of plastic and waste in our landfills. And to be fair, he's only 23. Wait till he's 50. And when he's 75, he'll solve like a third of the world's problem while our kids are still trying to get laid for the first time. Look, it takes time to destroy the planet, so it'll take a little bit more time to fix it, and probably more than just one 23-year-old who's like the size of 1/5 of a Texan. That's been your fork full of noodles for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are doing a little something different with Forkful of Noodles. It's very difficult to produce 30 minutes of content every single week with my touring schedule. So we are breaking up the 30-minute episodes into 3 different parts. The reason for that is because I'm the only employee of this show. I write it, do all the research, film it, and edit it. There's nobody else on staff to do that. So with my touring schedule, it's very hard to produce these shows. So basically, if you want to see the full 30-minute episode before it gets released, which I will be releasing the full 30-minute episodes, you can donate to my Patreon at patreon.com/KrishMohan, haha. If you donate to the Patreon, you will get early access to the full 30-minute episode, probably every other week or every third week, something like that. But basically, after the first part goes out. So that, again, is patreon.com/KrishMohan, haha. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed this portion of the show, please share it with your friends or your enemies or whoever you think might enjoy this video. I also have live stand-up comedy dates coming up in Huntington, West Virginia, Elyria, Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and many more. And if you would like to see my entire tour schedule for the whole year, you can go to ramennoodlescomedy.com. That's RAMAN noodlescomedy.com. There you will find all of my stand-up comedy albums that you can download. You can also subscribe to my Bandcamp page and receive exclusive unreleased stand-up comedy material each and every month. You can sign up for our email list to get updates directly into your inbox. And you can also, like I mentioned earlier, donate to the Patreon at patreon.com/KrishMohan, haha. Again, all of that helps with the cost of the show, and if we hit a certain point with the donations, I'll be able to do full 30-minute episodes every single week. There won't be any breaks or anything like that, and there won't be episodes that come out in different parts and different chunks. So that, again, is patreon.com/KrishMohan, haha. And if you can't donate to financially to the show, that's okay. A great way to help the show is by sharing. Sharing is caring, and it helps independent media reach new audiences and grow a little bit bigger. That always helps. You can follow us on various different social platforms. Hit the subscribe and the like button below. And thank you so much, and we will see you on the road.